Okay, so I taught ECA lab once, and someone that has already graduated, so there's no need to tell you their name, but they call this the rainbow method because when you have to factor something like this, it's not as simple. Don't do this. You can't just make your two parentheses because it's not all about the 3. The 3 alone doesn't make the 8 in the middle. You have to think about that you have to distribute the number in the front and the number back here. So this is where we do factor by grouping. So I wrote these steps out the best I could for you. And I said step 1 is when you see a problem like this that has a number in front of the x squared or the m squared, you have to multiply that first and that last number together. And I always do it on the top. So he called it the rainbow method because it looked like a rainbow and it made him happy.
What's the name?
So 3 times -3 is -9. Doesn't matter.
What, did he graduate last year?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Can't speak of it.
Can you give us a
What if I don't even remember his name? That's not a long time. There's definitely people I don't remember their name. Bradley Schrader did not take ECA lab. So, if you just remember that first step, then hopefully the rest of it will kind of fall in place. Because the second step is you're going to ask yourself that same question that we asked yesterday to solve, to factor, except for now you're going to use the -9 to come up with it. So my second step is we're going to come up with two numbers that multiply to give you this number on the top that still add or subtract, again this number will still tell you, to give you that middle number. So you're going to kind of forget about the 3's for a minute, and you're just going to focus on this. What multiplies to give me -9 that I could add or subtract to get -8? 9 and 1, right? I'm multiplying to get 9. So if I put 9 and 1 here,
Then it has to be negative.
which one has to be negative?
9.
-9 plus 1. And my advice to you is, yes, this is a thinking part. Make sure it works. -9 times 1 has to give me the top number. -9 plus 1 has to give me the middle number. There's only going to be one set of numbers that does that. And it doesn't matter whether you write the 1 first or the 9 first. What matters is the 9 is negative and the 1 is positive.
So why did we teach these here?
We practice factoring a lot in ECA lab because factoring is a big part of ECA, which no longer exists, right?
I know.
Now I said 10.
I failed it by 2 points my 8th grade year. 2 points. Yeah.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this trinomial that has 3 terms and we're going to make it into 4 terms. So step 3 is you're going to replace the middle number with the 2 numbers you came up with, which I've kind of already done, except for I need to put an m with it. So I'm going to say -9m plus 1m. And it's okay because that equals -8m. I haven't really changed anything. I don't know if I put this step here or not. Oh yeah. So now you got to bring down the other parts. So I'm not going to do anything here but bring this down. So that's 3m squared. I replaced the middle part with the 2 numbers I came up with. That's the new part. And I'm going to bring this down, which is -3. I haven't changed the problem at all. I just rewrote that into 2 numbers. With me so far? Why do I do this? Because now I can factor by grouping, and I don't have to do so much guess and check. All right? So now, the step 4 is factor by grouping. You should now be able to group these 2 together and factor by grouping, which is why factor by grouping is so important, even though yesterday they had all the different kinds of letters in there. So now if I group these first 2 together, I could take out, what, a 3? And what else? An m. So I'm going to put the 3m in front. Then I'm going to write what's left over. I took out a 3. I took out an m, so I'm left with m. And -9 divided by 3 is -3, and I took the m out. What should happen every single time is when I do this to the other side, I should get the exact same thing in the parentheses. So if you're not sure what to take out, write the same thing. Like, I better get m minus 3. So what should I take out of this so that I'm left with m minus 3?
Absolutely nothing.
Well, technically, could you take out point 1?
So, you're right. It's the right thing already, but we're not going to take out 0, Alex, because if we put a 0 in front, everything equals 0. So Caitlin is right. We should take out a 1, because if I take out a 1, I'm not going to change anything. So if it's already what you need, you're just going to take out a 1. And I'm actually going to put a plus 1 here, because I'm not taking out a negative 1.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just so like, well, it's weird because you're not taking away anything from the problem.
But you have to put the 1 there,
Well,
or it's not going to match up.
think about it. If you were, you can just think about it. If you had, you were subtracting there instead, and you would bring out a negative 1, and the negative 1 changes the entire.
Yeah. So if you're not changing anything, you always have that 1 there. So you have to do that. Okay.
So if you don't take out the 1, so that just makes it wrong.
Yes, because and because why is this next step? If you put nothing here, when you put, like, you should always end with 2 sets of parentheses. One set is going to be the part that's the same. So I always pull that out first. So I pull out the m minus 3. So it's gone. If you put nothing here, when you bring this down, you're only going to say 3m. And that's going to be the wrong answer. So you have to realize that you pulled a 1 out of that, because if not, you're missing that second part of that parenthesis.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So that's why you have to put the 1 there, because when you bring out the part that's left over, you have to say that you just pulled a 1 out of that. And then when you end, your answer should be a parenthesis times a parenthesis. Any memories of this from Algebra 1?
No, but
So, and again, you could check your answer really quickly. Like, you could FOIL this back out, and you would get 3m squared plus m minus 9m minus 3, which is this step right here, which would reduce back to that original number.
you went to one on top of one.
I can't. You can make it, though. Okay, so this is the focus of the day. So, if you turn the page over, I only have 2 more problems. I want you to start, actually, I'll do the first step, but then I want you to see if you can come up with the 2 numbers. And I kind of don't have a lot of room up here, so I'm going to make an upside down rainbow here. The first step is to multiply those 2 together. Sign matters here. So it's 2 times negative 18, which is negative 36. And your first step, and I'm not going to tell you the answer here, think of 2 numbers that multiply to give you 36, negative 36, that are going to subtract to give me negative 9. So think of things that multiply to give you 36. See if you can come up with them and rewrite that. And then we'll go from there. Maybe I'll rewrite that second just to make sure we're on the same page. A tough one, I think, because there's a lot of numbers. But again, if you get stuck and you're like, I don't know, that's what you should do over to the side or with the calculator. Come up with all the factors of 36. And you have to pick the one that you could put together by adding or subtracting to get 9. So what should it be in this case?
3 and 12.
It has to be 3 and 12. And I promise it doesn't matter whether you write 3 first or 12 first, as long as you put the signs right and as long as you factor right, we're going to end up with the same answer, even if we kind of look like we're doing the opposite thing for a while. So it's kind of up to you. I tend to always just write it how I think of it. Some people try to put the number first that they know will go with the first number. So like some people might put the 12 first because they see that 2 and 12 have a common factor, but I promise that it works just the same. So if I put a 3 here and a 12 here, I'm going to go ahead and put the y's with them. What matters is the signs here. If I want a negative 9, I'm going to do it this way on purpose so we can talk about negatives. The only way to get a negative 9 out of this, and you can check on your calculator if you're not sure, you got to subtract, Try it both ways if you don't know. But it's going to have to be a positive 3 and a negative 12. Because 3 minus 12 gives me negative 9. If you do it the other way, you get a positive 9. And that's wrong. So then we're going to bring down those numbers. So I bring down the minus 18. I bring down the 2y squared. That's a whole lot of thought in that one line of paper. And now you're going to group them together. And this one's kind of like the one from the homework. How's this poster? What? Yeah, you did it opposite. So if you do this one right, you want to take out what's over here and do this. So some people like write this parenthesis and then they go ahead and rewrite it over here, and then look up here for this. They say, what do I need to take out of 12y so that I won't put 2y? And that's why I put that 6. Does that make sense? If you aren't changing the signs in here, you bring down positive. If you need to change the signs, you bring down negative. So did we change the signs of this? I think you didn't put your sign here. Wasn't this a negative 12 here? I think you left your signs up. So we actually want this to be a 2y plus 3. So you got to really watch those signs. So since we want this to change from a minus to a plus, that tells you you need to change the sign. Okay? So, and again, if you wrote it as 12 and then 3, your answer is going to kind of look backwards for me at first, but we should end up the same way. It just means our parentheses are going to switch. But I wrote it like this for a reason, because I want to talk about these negatives. So on this one, I pulled the y out. If you feel like you struggle with this, I think a really smart thing to do is this parenthesis over here has to be 2y plus 3. So that can help you figure out what to pull out. So right now, this is a negative 12y, and I only want a positive 2y left. So if I want these negatives to change to a positive, that means I'm going to have to pull out a negative number. And 12 divided by 2 means I'm pulling out a negative 6. So because you know what you want to get over here, you can kind of work backwards to get there. Questions on where I got that? So since these are the same, I'm going to pull it out front. And what goes in that second parenthesis? Y minus 6. And so it's a very step-by-step process, and it works every time if it's factorable. So remember, we didn't do any like this yesterday, but sometimes things aren't factorable. And sometimes you think you're wrong because you think it should be factorable. But I put number 3 up here for a reason, because we get started the same way. Feel like you were going crazy? So on this one, if I do 3 times 1 and I get 3, 3 is a prime number. So the only two things that multiply to give me 3 are 3y and 1y. But you should see that there's a problem here, because I want to get a negative 2. If I want to get a negative 2 in the middle, do you agree that has to be a negative 3 and a positive 1? Can I take negative 3 times positive 1 to get a positive 1 at the end? It doesn't work, because it's not going to give me that plus 1 there. And I think, Jalen, you can tell me whether or not. Did you do like this and then it didn't work out as you went? Yeah. It doesn't match up?
Yeah, I got 1 and 5 minus 1.
So let's say you didn't realize it didn't work because you didn't check your signs. When you factor this, you can't get this to work over here, because if you try to make this a y minus 1, the sign here is going to change also. Like, it doesn't work. And sometimes it doesn't work because you messed the negative up. But this is the case. It doesn't work because it is not factorable, and we're going to just say that that's prime right now, or you can say not factorable. It either means if we graph this, it doesn't have any roots, or it means that they don't cross at nice points, like they cross in between. I told my 5th hour class yesterday, never on a test am I going to give you like half the test is not factorable. Maybe one on the test would be not factorable. So you shouldn't, if you get like 4 in a row that you think are prime, something's going wrong. It shouldn't happen that much, but it can happen. And so I just think it's nice to know that with factor by grouping, if you look at it correctly, it will tell you when it's not factorable because it won't work out. Okay? So I was hoping we would have some time to work today. We have a little bit. Oh.
That's all cameras can see.
Okay, so looking at this worksheet, the first 3 are just like the ones we did. Number 4 should be familiar to you from the homework quiz and the homework from yesterday. It's only 2 things. It's not going to be rainbow method. Look at number 5 and number 6. What looks scary about number 5 and number 6?
Oh my gosh, they all have exponents.
So maybe next to number 5 and number 6, you should write GCF next to it. I think you can pull GCF out first, and then you can factor. So those are going to be a little bit harder. And then number 7, hey, don't forget last week we graphed these. We're going to have a test soon we have to graph. So I put a review graphing problem. On the back, I put a little bit of challenge stuff. You do not have to do this stuff on the back, but it's just there in case, you know, you want some extra challenge in your life. But front side, you have to do. Real quick, if you look on the back, you see where that says under number 2, it says A3B3. I screwed up. That's supposed to say A cubed B cubed. And I made my copies, and I didn't want to waste all that paper. So again, not that necessarily you're going to even look at that, but that's supposed to be how to factor cubes. I'm going to talk about tomorrow in minutes. Well, not tomorrow, Thursday. Okay? So remember that PSAT is tomorrow. If you are a sophomore, you're not going to be in this class. Maybe you'll come back at the end if you get finished early. We aren't having homework tomorrow.
Yay!
But this is due on Thursday, so make sure you don't forget about it. On Thursday, we'll go over it and do the normal stuff. If you are not a sophomore and you're in here tomorrow, we're going to do a little activity, practice factoring a little bit, but we won't have homework tomorrow. Okay? So, work on it. Right, remember it's okay though, as long as it equals 30. So you're just trying to get that top number and this number. Forget about these three. Okay, so you're right, and those are different things. And you just need to get the size right to give you a copy.
Yes, it's how much? Decent amount. How much do you make? About 4. How much do you make?
And then what you're checking is these two numbers. 10 times negative 3.
Yeah, you can get 64 checks, they don't really hire 60. I'm the only 17-year-old worker. If you I mean, yeah. But you don't quit the first 3 days again.
Five and 6 give you 7. Whatever. Multiply 6 and 30. 10 and there you go.
People have paid.
Okay, try to get at least one of these done before you leave here. Jack, you don't even have it out. Alex, you don't even have it out.
Study island.
You didn't even have it out.
I remember last year, factoring was drilled in my head because of UCLA.
Yes, factoring is a big
I
part.
think it was like a couple, like, I want to say weeks, but you practiced it.
Yes.
Who was it?
Miss Spy taught last week. You're gonna miss something. It's been a long time. Who's your child really see it?
I passed
See,
like
there you go.
100 points over it. I don't know, I was pretty proud of myself.
It works.
I feel
In
like
math lingo land, we call that drill and kill. You just drill and kill. Drill, drill, drill. you need to think of things that multiply to get you through. So start over here listing things that multiply to get you through. And then you're adding or subtracting to get to the top number is what you're multiplying. The middle number you're adding or subtracting. So you need to pick two numbers that multiply to give you that add or subtract to give you that at the same time. So list it out so you can find it.
So I do minus and then
Plus, because then you're going to end up pulling out the negative.
So first of all, if you take a 5 out of 10 and not 1 out of 10, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so then that should be, we want that same thing over here.
Oh, it's
Right? So what are we going to do out of that? Right? We want the sign to change, right? So these are both negatives right now, and those are positive, so you need to go on negative.
That's a funny step.
So you want to change the sign to go.
I don't know how this works.
yeah.
So if you do an X out though,
The thing is, you don't have to write all the
and
literally.
if you pull X out of that, there's no X there, right?
You just have to walk in on them.
Yeah, most of
And
it.
then
And I have the first cards every once in a while.
I think it's more like
I'll ask my card,
standard
but
level.
I'm like, hey, Jack, you know, push cards.
So you want to be able to
It's
list this
not.
up here, and you want to try to do this.
It's kind of annoying how cards sway, but
Just take it in, not an X, just
take
a
$9
number.
an hour.
Yeah.
Change the X,
I'm cashier.
alright? Because if you take a negative out
Yep,
of it,
and I'm
it's like
switching to
divided by a
Connection
negative.
Center.
If you take a negative out of this, you have to change the positive. If you take a
Setting up
negative out of this,
phones
it's
and
change the
stuff.
positive.
Where are you in college?
Alex, good job on Sunday Island. You're working so hard.
Thank you.
That's sarcasm.
Thank you. I know I'm working.
The ASAP program on that tag.
Yes. And so then you can always check these two together to add to give you that middle number. These two numbers together to give us X's. So that's how you know you can try it. Okay?
College.
Oh my goodness, what a big number, right? 40. Yeah. 40.
Oh, no.
40 and 30. 12.
I got that first one done.
10. Phone 10. Does that work?
I'm pretty excited to take the ASAP program. It beats your high school record, so I'm like,
6 and 20. Nothing.
honestly, it was just my freshman year that was crazy. Every single class. It's my first time taking honors, too. Like, I didn't fail it. It's just this is the first time taking it because I failed algebra 1 first semester. Geometry was simple. It was easy.
Everyone says they're stuck at stuck at algebra. Geometry.
It was okay, but then you come back and it's like,
I've went through algebra.
see, I brought that upon myself because I just refused to do anything.
Yeah, no one.
No, as long as your parentheses are right, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right, because, right, as long as the signs are right, it doesn't matter if it's 3x plus 2 is in front of 5x. And on number 2 is kind of big, but maybe on number 3 there could be. Is there a GCF you could read up first on number 3?
I don't know, Miss Dixon, is there?
You should always look for GCF.
Yeah. Do you always look for GCFs?
Always.
Promise?
Because if you can take out GCF, then the numbers are smaller, and it's much easier to come up with two numbers when it's a smaller number.
So I was trick or treating last night.
It was good.
Did you guys go dressed as the Avengers again?
No, we went Saturday, but we didn't go. My son was sad I wouldn't dress up again, but I was like,
What is it? It's
one time.
I don't like to dress up. I don't like.
Remember to try on your PSAT tomorrow.
I don't like how it's 6 to 8.
Yeah. Like nobody.
Remember to 6 to 9. Yeah.
Wait, do it. You mean leave like?
So I can approach the office, please?
Yeah, you'll go regular day tomorrow. What? I don't know. Today is the 7th hour. You have to do pre-registration, and so ask those questions when you go to the cafeteria to fill your bubbles out. Send us your records.
I'm not gonna be
How are you going to fill your bubbles?
I don't know.
You need to talk to Mr. Gardner before you leave.
Okay.
Because you have to fill that out before you can take the test.
Alright. I'll talk to him right now.
All right.
I guess the juniors take it too.
Some juniors are taking it. Are you taking it?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I'm still recording.